When I play Fast Play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery, I have a chance to win a progressive jackpot that starts at $40,000 and grows from there. So yeah, I'm ready to
play ball!
Make the right call this season and play Fast Play Home Run Riches from the Maryland Lottery.
This episode is presented by Motorsports Incorporated. All seasons for work and play. Visit motorsportsinc.com for more.
Good morning, Baltimore. It is Monday, June 1st, and thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the Early Birds podcast. I'm your host, Matt Weyrich, alongside sports columnist Josh Tolentino. Josh, it was Star Wars weekend at the Yard. It came to Yards this weekend. Orioles running a bunch of promotions, lots of debates in the press box. Got any Star Wars takes for me?
Yeah, and my girlfriend's going to be a little bit disappointed. And, she knows this already, but so growing up, I was a Star Wars nerd. Like, my dad has all of the DVDs, like in that bundle that used to be like on the infomercials, and
oh yeah,
it's like packed. That's ancient history in our house. In our my dad has like this huge DVD collection. So I was a huge Star Wars nerd growing up, but that's kind of like where it, and my love for Star Wars never went away, but basically I'm frozen in the George Lucas era. And, once the new series and Disney took over, I have not, done my best to keep up, which my girlfriend Bia has. So, in terms of contributing to conversations revolving the new series, the new movies, I'm kind of not as in tune, but man, I could talk the original prequel, the original trilogy, all day. And I'm going to put you on the spot right here. Which one was your favorite from that first six?
Oh, easy. It's Empire Strikes Back is number one.
I'm right there with you.
Followed by New Hope. That's my number two. Then it's Revenge of the Sith 3. I go Phantom Menace 4, which is a bit of a hot take. Love me some Phantom Menace. And then Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, for rounding out my top 5. So as you can tell, all of my favorite movies are from that era as well. So you're not missing much. There have been some good ones here over the last decade plus, as this Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which I haven't seen yet. It's actually, I need to go see it. It's not because I want to see it, but I have to. I've seen every Star Wars movie in theaters since Episode 2. So I kind of have to keep that streak alive, even though I haven't actually been seeing season 3 of Mandalorian yet. Got to do my homework before I go out there and watch. So I think while Jacob is in Boston this week, I think I'm going to binge it a little bit and try to catch up.
Well, shout out to Jacob, who, man, he's definitely for it. Seeing the movie basically on day one release day. And I'll also add, kind of like why I'm stuck in the George Lucas era, is that I also I played violin growing up, up until like late high school, and so a big affinity.
You playing Star Wars on the violin?
For John Williams, man, he is one of the GOATs in terms of music composition. And back in high school, we actually had movie themed concerts, and Star Wars was one of them. And admittedly, it was definitely one of the toughest ones to prepare for in terms of back in my instrument playing days. I wouldn't say that I was the best at I don't even know how to man. Well, it just gives me great memories looking back, though.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was at a wedding this weekend, and at the rehearsal dinner on Friday, they had a saxophonist playing the whole time. And me and my buddy went up, and we were in this like nautical themed restaurant, and it got us talking about Pirates of the Caribbean. So we went up and we were like, dude, can you play Pirates of the Caribbean on sax? And we literally were like humming it for him. And he was like, I can't, it's too loud in here. I don't think I can get the beat down. I'm like, come on, you know it, you could do it. But he wasn't playing it for us, unfortunately.
I'm all about the live music, man. So whenever there's reception, you were just you were in a wedding this past weekend. Whenever there's that part of, if that's on the docket, I'm all for it. But yeah, used to play the violin, all about John Williams and that George Lucas era of Star Wars. But again, not too much up to date with the recent movies. But again, maybe I'll be like you and catch up 1 week here.
It's never too late. But while the Orioles were doing Star Wars promotions off the field and around the field, on it, the Orioles split a 2-game series with the Blue Jays, dropping the first 2 and then coming back in really extraordinary fashion to salvage the last 2, get a split, and leave this 10-game homestand with a 7-3 record. Really just what the doctor ordered for the Orioles, who were coming into the homestand really struggling, had just been swept on the road by the Rays, and they go to turn back around. They take 2 of 3 from the Tigers. They sweep the Rays in stunning fashion, and like I said, go and take 2 of 4 against the Blue Jays, a division rival. They now hit the road again. They go out to Boston for 3 games. Jacob's going to have y'all covered out there, and then I'll be in Toronto as they took on the Blue Jays once again next weekend before they come back again around and have another homestand. So really a pivotal time for the Orioles here, as we were questioning if this team was about to spiral out of control. And just when we think that they're really not showing a whole lot of signs of life and they hit a kind of a rock bottom, they're turning things around, and they certainly played a better brand of baseball this past week. And let's kind of talk through this Blue Jays series, Josh, before we get into our meat of the episode. But they're 28-32 now, 1 game back of a wild card spot. Who would have thought? With the state of the AL, anything's possible at this point, but the Orioles certainly playing well enough now to be firmly in the mix. And they come out, first game, they lose 2-1, a pitcher's duel. Chris Bassett kind of gets a tough luck there, going 6 innings, 1 run. Offense just not able to figure out lefty Patrick Corbin or the Blue Jays bullpen, as Anthony Nunez walks in the winning run late. And then in game 2, they lose 6-5, and really this one, this is where it felt crushing, and that all the momentum the Orioles had was halted. They have a 5-0 lead, and they go out and squander it. Trevor Rogers, who was looking great, goes out for the 7th inning in a scoreless outing and gives up 2 two-run homers in that 7th, doesn't record an out. And then later, Yennier Cano gives up the winning run as his struggles of late continued. And then as it bled into the next game, it looked like once again they were not going to be able to score much. They're losing 5-1 in the 9th. A massive turnaround for the Orioles. 8 straight batters reaching base, capped off by Pete Alonso's walk-off hit. They walk in a couple of runs. Jeff Hoffman, who famously didn't spur, but his contract did not come through with the Orioles, who walked away because of medical concerns. He ends up being the brunt end of that implosion for Toronto. The Orioles walk him off in what has been a walk-off heavy homestand, as Colton Cowser hit 2 home runs really earlier in this homestand. So they have that win. It's huge. And then they come back on Sunday and really a statement win. They go up 9-0, end up winning 9-5 as Tyler Wells there allows crooked number late. But overall, a really solid win for the Orioles, who, like I said, are firmly back in the playoff mix. Never really were out of it. It's the American League after all. But from where they are right now, anything is possible with this team. They're 28-32, which, as Jake Rill pointed out on Twitter, the Orioles have never had a season in which over their first 60 games they went 28-32 or worse and made the playoffs. But they did go on to win 90 games back in 1975. So certainly a turnaround is possible if they can play the kind of baseball that they've been playing over the last week.
Yeah, certainly, Matt. And, let's rewind back to the end of the Rays series. And I think that framing and, what I was thinking then can totally apply right now, as they're coming off 2 huge wins against the Blue Jays. They have not won on the road against an AL East opponent. And now they're shipping up to Boston, as they say. Craig Albernaz is going home. It'll be a sweet moment for him. But they just have to continue and rally around this momentum and go on a serious type of run. And, obviously their season-long winning streak is just 3 games. So again, basically after the Rays series, it was very nice to see them respond that way, especially after getting, knocked around down in Tampa and also at New York. And then they respond with, a fighter's mentality, as Craig Albernaz likes to say in those series at home. And then again, the Blue Jays, you mentioned Bassett's start. But man, Friday's loss especially, you thought that could be one that could snowball into the later parts of the weekend, and you thought that was going to happen on Saturday. So again, I think right now it's just really rallying around this momentum they have. I want them to see 4 I want to see 4 wins in a row from them. I want that number to, increase as high as it can. And you know what? I think the rotation is really taking a turn. I think that's a pretty obvious sign that we've seen from many individuals who've taken part, almost a passing of the baton here over these past 10 games in this homestand, and even extending before that earlier in the month. So Boston, a struggling team right now. I mean, as is the rest of the American League. And really, again, Craig Albernaz's group, they have to go on a type of run to really get some belief back from the fan base, because I think they earned it, Matt. And I wrote this in a column that published Monday morning on the Baltimore Sun. One of my first takeaways from the weekend is that this weekend generated 2 of the largest crowds of the season. The Orioles, they've only had 8 games exceeding, I think 34 home games, only 8 games exceeding crowds of 30,000 plus. And 2 of them were this weekend, and both of them were wins. And all their prior highest attended games, their other 6 highest attended games were all losses. So to be able to come back in dramatic fashion on Saturday and then a statement win of some sorts on Sunday, I think the belief here, it's reaching a point where maybe there's an apex in June as we as the summer arrives, but really just have to rally around this momentum and take off from here.
Yeah, I mean, really the true test. They were looking for wins any way they could get them, right, on this homestand, kind of a gift to play 10 games in a row, be able to settle in at home. They even didn't take batting practice on the field pretty much all week. One, because
Enjoyed
of
your
the
story,
hot temperatures.
by the way, on batting practice. I'd recommend our viewers or our listeners to check that one out, because that was a question amongst fans that there was one point during the homestand when I was walking around and a couple of fans saw my media badge, and they were wondering about why are the O's not taking batting practice. So obviously the elements played a part in that, but more insight in Matt's story on their lack of batting practice. But some guys did take batting practice throughout this Blue Jays final series against the Blue Jays.
Yes, yeah. Once they hit the weekend, they did go back out on the field, but they were doing a lot of cage work. Talk with Pete Alonso about that, some good quotes about the kind of work they can put in the cages versus being on the field, and how that prepares them differently. So certainly go check that out. But as I was saying, they go through this homestand. They needed wins any way they can get them. They go out and they go 7-3. It's great. Now they need to show they can win on the road. So far this season, the Orioles still do not have a win against an AL East opponent on the road. They are 0-7 in those games, having been swept by both the Yankees and the Rays. They're now going to Boston. Orioles overall away 9-17 this year compared to 19-15 at Camden Yards. So certainly that kind of is the next step for this team, to be able to carry over that consistency and really just the overall better quality of play away from home. So we'll see if that can carry over. But before we look ahead to June, calendar turns today. We want to do some report cards here. This episode kind of lining up nicely with the end of the calendar as well as a long homestand. So kind of a good checkpoint, I think, for us to look back at June, which was a very much an up and down month for the Orioles, and look at each 5 major position groups / areas of the team and assessing our grades. So the 5 groups that we're going to be looking at here are the offense, rotation, bullpen, defense, and base running. So we'll take a look at each of those one by one. Overall, the Orioles went 13-16 in the month of May. So still a sub 500 record, as evidenced by the slow start that they got to at the start of the month. But for the Orioles overall, they went 500 in April. And really the difference now in the standings is the 1 loss extra that they had in March and the 3 losses here that they had in May that have them 4 games under 500. So what one big month right here can certainly put them firmly in the thick of the wild card race, and maybe, just maybe, get them back into the AL East race as well. They are 10 games back of the Tampa Bay Rays there at the top of the division. I believe it's 8 games back of the Yankees as well for the number 2 spot. But they could climb into number 3 as soon as this week. So we'll see if that steady climb continues. But let's talk about the offense. First group here, and a couple of numbers for y'all. Orioles went out and scored 4.5 runs per game, right around the middle of the pack there. They hit 31 home runs, a 706 OPS. Their strikeout rate was 23%, right around league average, and 377 total bases, a solid number. But like I said, all this stuff kind of hovering right around league average. Josh, I give them a C+ here. I mean, maybe it's a little harsh, but this is supposed to be the biggest strength of the team, so I'm kind of grading them on a harsher curve. Need to see a lot from this offense, and certainly to this point, we've seen some big games like we did on Sunday. They go out and score 9 runs, but in the first game of that series against the Blue Jays, they go and completely can't solve a veteran lefty in Patrick Corbin and are left with 1 run on the board. So certainly, I think they are trending in a better direction offensively. We have some big performers this month, some guys who are really starting to hit their stride in this lineup, and others who are still struggling like they have been for most of the year.
Matt, yeah, I've kind of gone off on the offense before, and if you're a harsh grader, and actually I made a correction to my grade right before we jumped into the segment. I originally had them, so you got them at a C plus. I had them at a C minus, but you know what? After today, we're going to remove that minus, as they poured it on against the Blue Jays again in a statement win. I mentioned the crowd being the 3rd largest crowd, and for them to capitalize on all of that. But Matt, in terms of their record in May, they finished 13-16. 13 of their 16 losses, they had 3 or less runs. So, we mentioned the rotation, and we'll get into grades for the rotation. But if you look solely at that, without even diving into the numbers under the hood, the advanced analytics behind everything, I think that tells you it right there, is that they're not scoring enough consistently. They're not hitting enough consistently. And sure, again, even I'm part of the recency bias in improving their grade just by a slight mark here from their performance on Sunday. But 13 of those 16 losses, 3 or less runs. I think that is really the stat that tells it all there. If they're able to just put a little bit more run production, I think they're going to be more competitive in these games, especially as this rotation has taken a turn. And again, there are some very encouraging pieces: Samuel Basallo, Pete Alonso, Adley Rutschman. Not a short group, but a growing group rather. And you know what, Matt, I'm going to call you out on this one. Colton Cowser, he has been heating up. His walk-offs, he has not slowed down since our episode about a week ago from now.
Yep, Cowser certainly looking great. Still not playing every day, taking a seat against lefties, but it has become more of a natural platoon with him and Tyler O'Neill. So the strong side of that, at least, getting to start against right-handers. And we're seeing, even when he's coming off the bench, he is making an impact on a nightly basis. So certainly trending in the right direction is Cowser. And you mentioned that stat of the number of wins and losses they had in May when scoring 4 or more runs on the season. The Orioles are 24-9 when they score at least 4 runs in a game.
4 is
when
the
they
magic
don't,
number.
3 or fewer, we're looking at 4-23. 4-23 when they score 3 or fewer runs. So they need to put more offense on the board. The pitching staff certainly trending in a better direction, but on the year still very much has been underwhelming for the Orioles. So this offense, as I said, it's what's supposed to carry this team. It's what they've invested in, whether it be in their draft picks, in their player development, in their free agent signings. They have poured in the most resources into this lineup. Mike Elias said over the offseason that his expectation is for it to be one of the best, if not the best, lineup in baseball. We have seen glimpses of that, but far from consistency there. Though we are seeing certainly some guys trending in the right direction. Samuel Basallo, we got to be talking about Samuel Basallo. Huge month for the 21-year-old. Hit .338, 973 OPS with 4 home runs, 11 extra base hits, and 16 RBIs. That 973 OPS very clearly the best OPS for any month in his young career. And we were talking about this before the show, but Munetaka Murakami, the White Sox sensation so far this year, who leads the American League with 20 home runs, he just hit the injured list, out 4 to 6 weeks with a grade 1 hamstring strain. So while Murakami is out, Basallo might have a chance here to start to worm his way into the Rookie of the Year conversation. His OPS on the season ranks 2nd among all qualified rookies, only behind Murakami. So as the season goes on and Murakami's numbers start to not be qualified because of plate appearances, you're going to be seeing Samuel Basallo at the top of several leaderboards. And as the summer goes on, if that continues and he really starts to hit his stride in the power department, I think we really could be talking about him as a legitimate contender for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and certainly the Orioles, I feel like, are in a sense babying him in terms of his playing time and, wanting to keep him healthy, especially that big body throughout the course of a grueling 162 game marathon. But man, when he is in there, And, whether it be behind the dish, but certainly at the plate with his bat, he is making an impact that I don't think anyone could have imagined, just having realistic expectations at his age, at 21. And Craig Albernaz said today, I'm going to give you guys almost the same answer anytime you guys bring up Samuel Basallo, but his consistency and his approach essentially to all his work ethic, and Craig Albernaz's one of his favorite phrases in the unseen hours, only the coaches and his teammates are seeing all the work that he's putting in, all the work that he's studying for these opposing pitchers that he's facing. And again, we're seeing a lot of this early results from Samuel Basallo. Matt, I'm going to rewind here one more time. Can you what is their record again with 4 or more runs? Because that was just such runs.
I know it's 24-9 when they score 4 or more, and they're 4-23 when it's 3 or fewer.
All right, so Samuel Basallo is going to contribute to them in June, scoring 4 or more runs. 4, again, the magic number. Earl Weaver, that is such an iconic number in franchise history. They just have to remember that every time, basically, they take the field.
Channel the spirits of Earl Weaver with their offense. Absolutely could not hurt, but. The other guys who stood out for the offense, Pete Alonso was a big one as well. Really started to hit his stride, 7 home runs, an 840 OPS there. Gunnar Henderson still struggling a little bit, but did hit 7 home runs in the month, so the power is still kind of there. We saw Taylor Ward and Adley Rutschman cool off a little bit from their hot starts, particularly Taylor Ward, who's still drawing a ton of walks, good OBP, doing his job as a leadoff guy. Just we're still not seeing that power that we really thought was going to be coming from him as a guy who was acquired to add some right-handed thump to the middle of their lineup. You mentioned Colton Cowser trending in the right direction. Tyler O'Neill certainly has not been. And then we get Jackson Holliday in the mix here, and it's still very early, small sample size for him, but I think he's largely looked good at the plate so far as well. A couple of homers already. He's already swiped 3 bases, which I think is something to watch for him, is him getting 20 stolen bases this year. He had 17 last season, and even with the slow start to the year in terms of not being able to play, being hurt, I do think that he is a candidate to get 20 home runs or 20 stolen bases this season with the speed that he has as he becomes a more established base runner. So certainly something to watch with him. Let's talk rotation, Josh. Run us through your kind of thoughts here, but rotation overall on the month, 4.79 ERA, a 1.38 WHIP, and a 7.4 K per 9 with 11 quality starts in the month, all middling to bottom of the barrel type numbers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a C+, and I think again, we saw a lot of it up close throughout this homestand, but I think it's a trend that started even a little bit earlier in the month. And man, you could kind of just walk down the line from Kyle Bradish today, 1 unearned run in his recent run at making the stride back towards greatness. The Kyle Bradish that Orioles fans know and love has been taking form here over his past couple starts. You look at Shane Baz, he's had 2 very impressive starts, albeit against his former team. Just maybe pretend that you're going up against your old mates every time you take the hill, and he's going to get another opportunity here soon against these Boston Red Sox. Man, I know Craig Albernaz would love another quality start again as Craig Albernaz makes his return home to Massachusetts. And again, I'll even let you take the baton to talk about the rest of the rotation. Let's transition to Brandon Young, because I don't think anyone expected this. And the start in Houston last year, his perfect bid game, I think we all kind of had the same reaction. It's like, whoa, where did this come from? And obviously made some adjustments recently with that splitter, but man, he has just been on a roll this season.
Yeah, changed his splitter grip there and has seen some decent results on the pitch. But this from Brandon Young, 2.86 ERA, 24 strikeouts, a 2.22 batting average against in the month. Really a huge step forward for the young right-hander who we saw last year, as you mentioned. He had a bid for a perfect game. Just hadn't been able to kind of string together a good amount of starts where we could see it like that. We saw spurts, but we weren't seeing it consistently. And this was far and away the best month of Brandon Young's career, and certainly something that's encouraging. And really, probably helping fend off Trey Gibson from being a guy that we're going to be seeing in the rotation right now. You know, Gibson is kind of the sixth man. They brought him up for one start there, a spot start. But other than that, he is now in AAA. So that's because of Brandon Young. And you got to give him credit that he has been able to kind of get going here. And we'll see if it's something that he is able to sustain. My overall grade for the rotation is a C. So just like below yours at a C+. It was a bad start to the month. In that it is a lingering experience for me, feeling for me of really needing to see particularly Trevor Rogers turn his season around. But there was also a couple of bad starts in there from guys like Chris Bassett, as well as Brandon Young early in the month. Kyle Bradish was still kind of just getting going. So for this group, they're trending in the right direction. So it's an optimistic C right now. And I certainly think there is room for it to be a much higher grade at the end of June. But for right now, just with the numbers and where they're at right now, I'm going to go ahead and stick them with a C.
Yeah, and we'll make this really quick. I'll give them a C plus just because of, again, all of the positive signs that we're seeing. But you mentioned Trevor Rogers. What's your opinion on kind of the big debate that came from him going back out there for the seventh inning? Do you take him out at a confident level, especially knowing what he's gone through this season? If you're Kirk Albertaz, or the decision that ultimately we all witnessed was leaving him in it. Leaving him in a bit too long. Again, you look at his spray chart, in terms of where he was locating his pitches, really quality stuff. The Trevor Rogers that dominated at the beginning of the season, all throughout parts of last season, and then just pitches where they went and got him and basically ended up over the wall. And, Charles McAdoo, credit to him, making his MLB debut, his first hit, a home run off Trevor Rogers.
Not too shabby for sure, but I think Craig Owens made the right call, even if it wasn't the one that ended up working out. I mean, he's got a pitch count in the 70s. You're not going to pull any guys, particularly your opening day starter, when there's still that fresh going into the seventh inning, and maybe a little bit earlier of a hook in that inning, obviously allows 4 straight guys to reach and 2 of them homer. But at the same time, like, that happened fast, and if he's going into the seventh inning, you're not having anybody warming up behind him because you feel confident he's got plenty of pitches left to go. Like, he looked good leading into that frame. I don't hate it. I understand wanting to get him, kind of off the mound and feeling good about himself after that outing. But we're also in the business of winning baseball games. And look at this bullpen here, and we could just segue right into our next category here. The bullpen, it's been pretty bad so far this month, or I should say after this month. A 5.53 ERA, a 1.52 WHIP, 7.4 K per 9. They blow 4 saves throughout the month. Anthony Nunez, after a fast start, really struggling. Yennier Cano had been on a great run and has been slipping as of late. You go up and down this bullpen. Tyler Wells is coming off of a rough outing. We saw some blow-up performances from Dietrich Enns and Keegan Aiken and Andrew Kittredge. So all of that just kind of adding up. And right now with this group and how fast of a start it was to begin the season and how good they were looking in April, with Ryan Helsley down, Rico Garcia really is the only starter that is basically holding this off from being an F for me. So I have it as a D.
Yeah, in school when there's a group project, or we'll even apply this to early birds when you are the one getting into our pre-planning doc and doing a bulk of the work. That is Rico Garcia right now, man. He is just carrying this bullpen. The only one who's really continued his success throughout the season. Again, he had. Let's look here real quick. He had 1 earned run in all of May. So, again, just continuing his success, but the rest of the bullpen has faltered in some key moments. And, you think of how much of that is, like, which version of the bullpen is more of the all-complete, all-around version that we're going to see for the rest of the season. It's got to be somewhere in the middle. Of course, Anthony Nunez, a rookie, just 24 years old, was such a great success story at the start of the season. And again, you look at his Baseball Savant page and just even speaking to some of the pitching coaches, firm believer in the stuff that is there. But again, when you're that young, you're going to go through early growing pains and certainly dealing with in-game command issues and not being able to find it like how he did earlier in the season. And then Yennier Cano, Calvin Meyer, ace beat reporter alongside you, Matt. I mean, he mentioned, and that's a nod to Sam, who loves saying ace beat reporter when he refers to one of you guys. So I hope he gets a chuckle out of that when he's listening. But Jacob pointed out how all 3 hits, occurred against right-handed hitters, and I don't have the stat in front of me, but it had been, out of all the hits he had allowed this season, such a minuscule number in terms of what he had allowed versus what he had allowed all season. So you gotta imagine that that's not going to continue. You also think of what the injury status of Yunier Cano. Obviously he was not 100% healthy enough to be thrown into that situation. And actually, to add to that, with Cano, was dealing with hamstring discomfort earlier in the week. I believe hadn't pitched for 2 days, but that day that he did get shelved there. Was that the Friday game that would have been? Such
Yes.
a long homestand. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So after Trevor Rogers, so Cano comes in, and he had actually thrown a bullpen earlier that day. So it's like, I counted about a dozen pitches pregame when Craig Albernas said he was going to throw, which actually surprised a few of us who were there on the field pregame, because when Craig Albernas said he was going to throw, we just thought he meant like flat ground and would continue like his, not rehab, but his buildup from whatever injury that he was dealing with that hamstring. But again, had the green light to go there, and you got to wonder how much that affected him in that moment. Between like what we've again witnessed this month, and you got to think they get Ryan Helsley back at some point. He has been pretty lights out for them. I think it's somewhere in the middle.
Yep, and Helsley throwing off a mound now, so that's good news for him as he works his way back from elbow inflammation, potentially seeing him on a rehab assignment here, maybe in a week, maybe 2 weeks, and we'll see how long it takes for him to continue that build up and get back into this Orioles bullpen as they manage life without him. This bullpen here, you mentioned the hot start in April and now falling back to earth and having to be somewhere in the middle. This is an unproven group, and I don't know that you can assume that they are going to return to those heights of April. It could have been the league starting to figure some of these guys out, and there's a reason they weren't established names to begin with. At the same time, there's a lot of nasty stuff in this bullpen, and it's pretty evident what the Orioles see in a lot of these guys. So as I look at this Orioles team right now, and moving forward to the future, I do think that when we get to the trade deadline, this is going to be one of the biggest needs for this team. And, potentially a guy like Keegan Aiken, has to kind of earn his way to stay on the team by that point. He's obviously really struggled in middle relief type role for this team. He's been doing some opening for them. Fans have really been clamoring about why is he getting kind of the benefit of the doubt when they go out and DFA Dietrich Enns, who cleared waivers and was optioned to AAA. Aiken still, when he's on, we have seen him be a really dependable reliever, particularly in 2024, was one of the best relievers on that playoff bullpen. And now, for the Orioles right now, they're at a point where he has to kind of maybe prove that he still belongs in this bullpen here as we get closer and closer to the deadline. And the Orioles, being in the thick of it, look like they could be buyers.
Yeah, and Keegan Aiken, you mentioned him, but Tyler Wells, who was the first reliever to be used at the beginning of the season, opening day against the Twins, and what you would describe as a high leverage spot. I'm not sure what Craig Albernas exactly would label that. Just a nod to his he enjoys picking with our phrases here, but. Man, just getting back to Tyler Wells, I believe 8 earned runs allowed over his last 5 outings. So, man, him and Aiken, you hope that at some point they're able to really find their form here in the near future. And then you point to the trade deadline. That'd certainly be a spot if they continue to be in this race, this wild AL race. We're looking specifically at the wild card, but it's kind of insane how attainable even a fighting spot in the division is at this point. So,
not calling them buyers just yet. We're still got plenty of ways away before we have to start having that conversation.
In Boston and Toronto, we're going to call them buyers, right?
I mean, you just have to think that there are going to be a couple of teams that separate themselves from the pack in this AL wildcard race, and it's not going to be a team that is dancing right around 500 is going to be in the playoffs. Maybe. I mean, it is possible. The Cincinnati Reds were right there last year at this third wildcard spot in the NL, but same time, with what we've seen of how this has kind of worked with third wildcard in the past, maybe some of these teams are going to start to separate themselves, and maybe the Orioles are one of them. But let's move on to defense here. And defense has been a hot button topic for the Orioles this year. Obviously, got off to such a rough start. And really, they still are not super, I want to say, consistent defensively. But I do think, and this is from being out at the yard every day and watching games pretty much all month, I do think I've seen, just on a day-to-day basis, a lot better defense from this team. And I think we've been seeing steps forward for Gunnar Henderson at shortstop, making one of the most athletic plays I've ever seen the other night, deep in the hole, having to flip over and make a throw right on the money. It's a fantastic play. Pete Alonso remains very solid at first base. Adley Rutschman, I'm ready to say it. I've been ready to say it. He is an elite defensive catcher, particularly with framing, but also in limiting the running game. He's been a huge asset for them behind home plate. They get Jackson Holliday back. Still too early to know just how good he's going to be at second base, but certainly getting some time there at second and third. And then the outfield, Taylor Ward's hovering right around league average, but I think Colton Cowser largely has been pretty good in right field. The two spots here are center and third base. Center field, Leody Taveras does not grade out very well among advanced metrics, particularly for his routes that he takes to balls. We saw that on Sunday, him not being able to track down a ball to deep left center because he took a jump in the wrong direction. That was a very persistent conversation when Cedric Mullins was roaming center here for the Orioles. And then third base, I mean, it's been a black hole all year. Kobe Mayo among the league basement in terms of outs above average and defensive run save this year. Now, though, we're seeing more Blaze Alexander at the spot as he really gets going, and that should potentially elevate them at that spot moving forward. So for me, this is my best grade that I'm giving to any of these position groups here, B- for the Orioles defense in June. I think they really have trended. Even before they started winning games in this homestand, I think they were playing better defense. There's still some things that need to be cleaned up, some bad plays that have been costly. But at the same time, I do think that largely this has been a much better defensive team than we saw in April when it was a downright disaster.
That's your highest grade, you said. I'm going to not right there match you, but I'll go with a C+. And again, if we're going to go on recency, we saw just this weekend Leody Taveras, who had been up until about this week. I thought a pretty solid defender there in center field. Man, but just a couple misplayed balls, some that had catch probabilities of over 50%. And, Tyler O'Neill, even Colton Cowser, who I consider to be their best defensive outfielder, both of them have made misplays on balls in right field, whether it be balls off the wall and just not predicting or reading the bounce right, whether it be on the retrieval, fumbling, or, not having clean throws there into the infield. Man, I think it just has to be cleaned up a little bit more. And certainly, I think a lot of fans have seen some wreckage moments earlier in the season. That's why, considering where they were previously to now, there has been noticeable improvement there. But as it pertains to outfield, still not a long ways to go, but certainly areas to clean up.
I do wonder if they start to consider flipping Cowser and Taylor Ward and having Taylor Ward in right field. I know he's been a predominant left fielder throughout his career, but left field at Camden Yards is so big. It's basically a second center field. And to have a guy in Cowser who, in that same center field, was a Gold Glove finalist as a rookie in 2024, with the way that his arm is it a waste to have him in left versus right? Maybe, but he's still not the most accurate arm in the world. We've seen him make some great throws. He can throw extremely hard. His velocity is among league leaders for corner outfielders, but at the same time, for Cowser, I do think that he is a better fit in left field. So curious if that becomes a conversation here. Not that Ward has necessarily been bad. I mean, to have basically a 0 OAA in left field right now at the Camden Yards is pretty good. You're going to take that for sure. But I do wonder if they are maybe sacrificing some balls landing in gloves by having him in left and Cowser in right. So overall, though, I do feel like this defense is getting better. I'm interested to see what Holiday looks like this year at second base. He really was kind of a problem at second base last year, particularly with his backhand. He just wasn't super rangy at second, and that really hurt him in the metrics. Can certainly make really good plays on balls in front of him. He's so athletic, and that's why they feel comfortable trying him out at third base. But I do wonder if he is able to take a step forward defensively at second base, because that could be huge for his value in being able to really settle in at that position, which was obviously pretty new to him, having learned it really in the minor leagues.
Yeah, and Miguel Cairo, and during our time down there in Sarasota, and for some archive reading for those listening, they can go back to your Q&A with Cairo and just what his intentions are with this group. But man, if I had to identify a player who spent the most time with him during my time down there, and also while he was dealing with his injury, it was Jackson Holiday. No shortage of time out there on the field, out there early hours, out there late hours, and certainly doing that pregame here as well. And you mentioned the backhand. That was actually a very specific part just throughout his teaching process. I'm not going to necessarily spitball everything that they were discussing, but again, go check out Matt's story from spring training on Miguel Cairo and just his coaching tactics with this infield in Jackson Holiday.
Yep. So I'm at a B minus. You're at a C plus there. We're basically in the same neighborhood here. What about base running? And this is an area that has really reared its head at certain times for the Orioles. They were among the league leaders in pickoffs at one point, and that was again a problem in this series. Pete Alonso being picked off at first base in a really key spot after there was another pickoff earlier in the homestand. Gunnar Henderson, his fourth time on the year, which is a career high for him already here at the end of May. So pickoffs have been a problem, but stolen bases, the Orioles have actually been one of the most efficient base stealing teams in baseball. In May, they were 8 for 22, that 818 stolen base rate, fifth best in Major League Baseball for the month of May. They were not stealing a ton of bases. The raw totals not super high, but certainly for them, it's seemed like there's been an intention of trying to be more aggressive, and I think that's something we've really seen over the last week, maybe two, of them trying to be more aggressive on the base pass, going first to third, things like that. And they have been burned for it. That's basically what happened with Alonso getting picked off, was he was already thinking about going first to third, or maybe even scoring on a ball into right field, and ultimately gets too far off the bat, gets a secondary lead, and is picked off easily. So, the aggression can hurt you. You got to be able to pick your spots and be able to balance that with being smart. But at the same time, I do think we've seen a bit of a shift here from the Orioles in terms of intent on the base pass, and I think that is a good thing. So I'm giving them a C, right around average grade here for the Orioles. But I do think, again, they are trending in the right direction in this category, just from what I've seen from an aggression standpoint, which they just were a little too complacent on the base pass before, really. And when you're not hitting all the home runs that you expect this team to, you got to have good base running.
Yeah, and this might surprise you, Matt, but this is going to be one of my higher grades given how complacent they were earlier in the season. And I know there are the moments that stick with fans, Gunnar being caught between the bags, Pete Alonso, like what you mentioned in this most recent series. But I'm right there with Craig Albanez. I'd lean on the side of being overly aggressive than not aggressive enough. And, that when you enter that territory, it comes with that risk of being caught in moments like that might stick around, or it might go viral with fans. It might cause part of the fan base to say, bench this player the next day. Where is the teaching moment or learning moment in that? But hey, you know what? Pete Alonso, extremely accountable. Jacob Calvin-Meyer, he has a story on Pete coming up on Monday here on the Baltimore Sun that you can check out on his leadership and just his level of accountability that he's shown to his teammates. He was the first one, in that clubhouse to discuss his mistake there from the eighth inning over this weekend. Again, getting caught at first base. And again, a B minus might not be the best optic looking grade amongst those looking in, but when you look at where this team was earlier in the season with the lack of aggression on the base paths, man, obviously there's a lot of voices that go into it, but you got to imagine one of them is Buck Britton, and being able to wave his arm like a what do you want to use whatever symbolism their analogy, but he has been certainly busy this month sending guys home.
Yeah, and he was fantastic last year as well in that regard. A big reason why that he was kept around for this staff, even with all of the turnover. Most of the guys that stuck around on this coaching staff were on the pitching side, but Buck Britton, an Org guy, and obviously having family ties to the Orioles as well, somebody who they felt highly enough about to keep around. And I think he's been a great third base coach for them, particularly with one out, which is really the toughest call for a first base coach of when to send guys, because with 2 outs, you're sending everybody. 1 out, you're being pretty, or no outs, you're being cautious. You have a longer inning ahead of you, whatever. But 1 out, that is the true test of a third base coach. And so far, Buck Britton with 1 out has been pretty dang good for a third base coach. So I like I said, I give him a C. You're at a B-. None of these grades here that we talk about all the way through, we don't have any A's and we don't have any F's. We're between low B's and D's here for this team, and that's because they went 13-16 in May. But that being said, they are trending in the right direction. There have been things to like that we have seen over the last week. Are they back? We'll see. But at the same time, there is at least a glimmer of hope here that the Orioles can turn their season around and be the team that we thought they could be heading into the year. Josh, as we wrap up here, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the reinforcements that are hopefully on the way, by the way of, Dylan Beavers. He's been rehabbing. It seems like he's on full swing mode. How close is he to returning? Ryan Helsley. And then knock on wood, if you're an Orioles fan, if you're part of this team, that no other players join them, in terms of being sidelined. But obviously Jordan Westberg doesn't seem like he's going to be joining them at all this season. But the guys that they do have are on the shelf. What does it look like when it's all put together? Are we ever going to get that benefit, that full picture this season? It seems like some guys are close, but I think that's just a big question here as we turn to June. Man, any other good words for any other words for the good people? I was gonna tease you, Matt, that you are the same age as Lamar Jackson, and you mentioned that you cannot touch your toes. So did you not do well in the sit and reach? Back in
Dude, I was presidential in 4 out of 5 categories every year, but my flexibility killed me, so I never got the presidential award or anything. But it was always because of the freaking box sit. I just couldn't touch. I'm a tall guy, all right? I got long legs. I'm all legs, and I'm definitely not flexible in the slightest. So that was something I was never really able to overcome. Which I'm actually lucky that I didn't have too many hamstring injuries or anything like that as a kid. I had some groin strains in football a little bit, but nothing else super crazy. So I got lucky in that regard. But yeah, as an adult, it has not gotten much better.
Well, I just remember that I had to tease you on that. You know what you do have going for you? You're like Lamar, who on OTA practice this past week. The Ravens have their third one coming up this Tuesday or tomorrow rather. Lamar Jackson said he's not UNC status at the age of 29. I walked out with Jacob on one of the games. I mean, every game blends
Right.
together, but I believe one of the Blue Jays games, we were leaving the yard probably past midnight, and he told me that I am officially UNC status because I'm a few years older than both you and Lamar. So I've got that going for me. I can't touch my toes though, so we're gonna get you there.
We're gonna need some serious training if that's gonna happen, because we go too quickly. I'm gonna snap like a rubber band. So we'll see about that. But no unks here on my end. We're holding off as long as we can. He's Josh Tolentino. I'm Matt Weyrich. Want to thank y'all so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Give the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And give us a follow at Sun Early Birds on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Appreciate y'all. Have a good one.